This episode of Settle the Score is sponsored by Sky Sports. Stream Sky Sports flexibly on Now. What you want, when you want, no fuss. Go to nowtv.com to start streaming Sky Sports today. Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to Settle the Score. Today we are looking back on the biggest game of the weekend. Yes, the dramatic 2-1 win for Aston Villa against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So to get into this, we have David Chidgey from Chelsea Fancast and Chris Budd from the My Old Man Said podcast. Dave, I'm coming straight to you. Enzo Maresca has spoken about how Chelsea dominated the game for the first hour, but to capitulate when Aston Villa made their changes and to offer so little in response, you've got to be feeling a bit frustrated.
Well, I know you can't just go on social media, but the reaction from the fans that were there and on social media, it's really angry, actually. It's the most angry I've seen us for a long, long time. And what's interesting is they're not just pointing the finger at Maresca, who was culpable. I think those substitutions, the ones that Emery made versus the ones that we made, tell a big story. But they're now really beginning to point the finger at the sporting directors too, because it's clear that the squad that they have built over 3 years is just not good enough. I mean, the way we fell apart, and both goals were down to errors, but the way we fell apart when Emery changed it tactically was just appalling, because, as you said, Angelina, for 60 minutes, we were much the better team. Everybody talks about Villa as title contenders. And I watched it thinking, well, they're having a laugh, aren't they? They look really ordinary for 60 minutes. And then suddenly he makes those changes, puts an extra man up top, scores a goal, and we just fell apart. And it's really, really very annoying.
Yeah, I can
to put it mildly.
I can tell from the tone of your voice. I mean, Chelsea still won unexpected goals.
Oh, great.
I'll give you that. But it seems like a bit of a common theme with Villa in that they lose on XG but win the game.
Yeah.
So on the balance of the game as a whole, Chris, I'll come to you first. I think I know the answer. Did Villa deserve to win?
As your man said, it's like if you make errors and you've dominated a game for an hour, it doesn't matter whether you're playing Villa or bottom of the table Wolves. It's like if you don't bury your chances, a good side, and Villa are a good side. Now, did they look like title contenders for an hour? No, of course not. But then, how many times down the years of sides who've won the league played badly and won? That is a sign. That is like the pillar stone that you build. Not necessarily a championship winning team on, but certainly a successful one, and we are that now over the last 3 years. We're a good side. We were well below par, but Emery got it right, and it was unfortunately the Chelsea fans are probably right to question Maresca, because I think what you saw over 90 minutes as opposed to an hour was a rookie manager, or a relative rookie manager, against a real elite level operator who saw the problems, saw how he'd got it wrong, and once Emery changed the game, Maresca was sort of scratching his head. Whereas you look at it's not all about money, but you look at the sort of the value of what Chelsea brought off the bench. Their bench was worth more than most teams' starting lineups, but Villa were sort of leaner and meaner, and that's ultimately what it came down to in the end. Was for half an hour we looked slick, and once we actually started having a crack at Maresca's side, I think his tactical plan fell apart very quickly, which must be very frustrating for the Chelsea fans when you look down the lineup and you see a lot of quality players, but collectively they're not. They're a good side, but I wouldn't say this is by a long shot a vintage Chelsea team. They're a mile off where they were sort of 10 years ago.
Yeah, Chris, absolutely spot on. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, the other thing I would add, actually, and I don't really offer this in mitigation or as an excuse, but Villa have got one of the oldest squads in the Premier League, I think, and we've got the youngest, and I think that really showed as well. I mean, it was inexperienced, and I mean, we see it all the time, and this is why we're all so angry. And you've just seen it on Saturday, but. You're a gnarly old team and you know how to get through, and we're not. I mean, we just, as I said, the way we just fell apart was just so annoying. And you get that with young and inexperienced sides. But this is why I think the supporters are now beginning to go for the sporting directors, because this is their strategy. Chris, Angelina, and anybody who knows football knows you bang a few experienced players into that squad and we would be doing a lot better than we are. and it's so frustrating.
I mean, Chelsea have dropped 11 points from winning positions in home Premier League matches this season. That stat's been flying around. Far more than any other side. What is it that's going wrong at Stamford Bridge?
Well, it's precisely that, I think, Angelina. They don't know how to manage games out. I don't know. I mean, you could be unfair perhaps and say there's a little bit of arrogance there that they believe their own hype, because Chris is right. There are some good players there, but you never get consistency. They don't know how to manage the game out, and sure, a lot of that's down to the manager, but it's the players that kick the ball on the pitch, not the manager. And I do think a lot of this is down to inexperience.
On the flip side, you look at Aston Villa. They've retrieved 18 points from losing positions this season, more than anyone else in the league. Obviously, a lot of praise for Unai Emery for sending on Watkins, Onana and Sancho for Buendia, McGinn and Marlon. Is that one of his and the team's best qualities, Chris, that games can be flipped like that when you've got these subs that are ready to make an impact?
I mean, ultimately, the easy answer is yes. I think it's based on resilience as well. This group's been together a reasonable length of time, and you bear in mind the business we've not been able to do. Our squad depth is good when everyone's fit, but you look at Villa's bench at Stamford Bridge, and it was nowhere near the level that Chelsea had. But it's a very lean, very mean group of players, and I also think it's a group that have been clearly very well coached. They know the plan. The fans in the stand know the plan. It's almost like the opposition fans know what we're going to do, but actually when it all clicks, stopping it's another matter, and that's kind of where you go back to the manager. You've got an elite level operator against kind of a rookie who's in a job where I know a lot of Chelsea fans weren't necessarily buzzing when he arrived, thinking, well, is he up to the task of this? And you're sort of seeing that, well, not yet, but they've got the makings of a really good side, whereas Villa are probably a little bit further along in their development, albeit without spending as much money. But you see what you can achieve with a really kind of strong core, and that's how Villa kind of won the game. It was the problem maybe earlier in the season, or at times last season at the end of the season, where our big players maybe weren't coming to the fore in the key moments. And you've seen in the last few weeks, well, it's Rodgers, it's Watkins, Konza, Martinez. The spine of the team are the ones kind of pulling us through games when maybe we're not playing well. But we can now go to a Chelsea and get a win with our backs against the wall. We can do the same against United when we weren't great. The same against Arsenal when you saw two really strong sides going toe-to-toe and we came out on top. I think it's something like, 15 wins in our last 17 in all competitions? And you look, sort of the more you zoom out in the calendar year, you realise what an incredible job they've done in 2025. Since because sort of this time last year, Villa were really kind of hacking around very inconsistently. They were sort of in the middle of a Champions League campaign, but kind of dropping the ball in games where they shouldn't. And now they're kind of... you trust them. That's the thing with the fans now. There's a real trust factor that actually when we're backed into a corner, Emery will get it right and normally does. Now, is that always going to happen? I don't know. You mentioned earlier about the whole XG thing, and the XG hipsters are just like eating themselves from the inside out at the moment, because we're just
You're overperforming it more than any other Premier League club this season.
Well, do you know what? I'd counter that. We're overperforming XG as a stat, but I just think stats are nonsense, because if you watch Villa over the last 3 years, this is a good side, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, and it's like, you look at peak Chelsea, say, under a Mourinho, they were like the defensive team of the last 20 years, probably. It doesn't have to be free-flowing, and I think we can be free-flowing. You saw Villa just cut Chelsea apart at times, but there's pragmatism, and I think you're seeing it a little bit more from Arsenal now as well at the top of the table, and Liverpool last year, where actually it's not all about Guardiola ball, where it's like if it doesn't look beautiful, it's not correct. Actually, let's play winning football, and Villa are playing winning football at the moment.
I can't believe it. I'm agreeing completely and utterly with Chris yet again. I mean, but he's right. I mean, the only stat that matters is the one at the end of the match, and how many goals you've scored compared to the opponent, and how many points you've got on the table. And actually, that what we're talking about right now underlines exactly one of the key differences on Saturday. We should have been 3 or 4 up at half time, but we are not clinical enough. We don't put the ball in the back of the net. Villa are clinical. No messing around. I think Watkins is a superb striker. It has to be said. So, and he turned up and he puts the ball in the back of the net, and that's the only stat that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about the Cole Palmer situation because Enzo Maresca said that there were no fitness concerns, but he was a bit tired. Said that he had a good game, but did sub him off. Palmer did not look happy to be brought off. You've mentioned the players a couple of times, but that situation specifically, what did you make of it? Is it a bit worrying, perhaps?
Very. I mean, talking about clinical, I mean, I'd say that Cole Palmer is arguably the best finisher we've got in the squad. I know he's carrying an injury. I mean, this groin injury he's got, there's an argument to be had that he perhaps should have had an operation, but I know that they're quite complicated injuries. So, yes, it's probably true that Maresca is protecting him to a degree, but, to take off arguably your best player, you've just conceded a goal. You want to get back in the game, you would have thought. I mean, I don't blame him for being angry. I mean, there's quite a lot of. I mean, I don't know whether he will or not, but people are worried that if this continues, that Palmer might look to get out of the club, and a lot of people would be after him, which would be an absolute disaster, I think, for Chelsea at the moment, because he's clearly their best player. But yeah, I get his anger because he could have made a difference. He could have got us back in the game.
And Chelsea are now fifth. You're level on points with a pretty inconsistent Manchester United side.
The shame,
putting it lightly. Yeah. 13 points off the leaders Arsenal. You can argue, I don't know, you're probably not arguing this, but some people might argue that this is only Maresca's second season. You've had a lot of players, a lot of rotation going on, the transfer policies, etc. But really, is that good enough from him as your manager?
Well, that's a good point, Angelina. I mean, he is a very inexperienced manager. I thought he did all right last year, actually, to get us into the top four. We never have been title contenders. We're a long, long way off it for all the reasons we've said. He's certainly not been helped by the injuries that we've had this season. I mean, losing Colwell has caused all sorts of problems because the defensive backup just isn't there. I mean, Badia Shield's hopeless. Dizazi's been sent to Siberia, from what I can tell. And Tozin's awful too. So, losing Colwell was massive. We lost Delap, who was supposed to be, the guy who was going to score us the goals. And, of course, Palmer's been out for a lot, and he's our best player. So I feel sorry for him in that respect. The rotation, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people are saying that this is all part of the club plan. We reckon that we're becoming a player trading club, not a football club. So they're actually rotating to give these guys minutes. And if that's coming down from the top, then I feel sorry for Maresca there. But if it's him that's making that decision, I have no sympathy. Because, again, anybody in football knows the first thing you do is you play your back five all the time. Arsenal do it. I'm sure Villa do it most of the time. That's where you start. You play your best back five all the time. We don't. We rotate every game. And no wonder they don't know, what's going on. I mean, look at the marking for the second Watkins goal, non-existent. So, I do have sympathies with him on some things, but not on others.
Do you think that you could still make an impact in this title race, or are fans just kind of brushing it to the side?
Well, we're not going to win the league, but we knew that anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if we get top four. I mean, the league is mad, absolutely mad. I don't think I've ever seen it so backed up as it is. I mean, yes. Villa, City and Arsenal are pretty clear, I think, of most people. But that kind of another 8 to 10 teams down, there's 3 to 6 points in it, and that's gettable, isn't it? So, I mean, we are in fifth. I don't know. We'll soon see. I mean, we got City away at the weekend. I now view that with some horror. But who knows? I mean, the other thing that might screw things up, of course, is how long we stay in the Champions League, because we're playing 2 games every week until March. That's for sure. So that worries me a bit. But ultimately, most football fans will tell you they want to do best in the league. That's the competition that really counts. And I think as a club, we have to finish in the top 4. We need the money to be in the, that you get for the Champions League. So, irrespective of the glory, it's now a financial consideration. So, it would be a disaster, I think, if we didn't finish top 4.
Yeah, 100%. Chris, looking at the game, we have to talk about Ollie Watkins. Brilliant coming off the bench. People questioning if he is really kind of second to Harry Kane for England, even questioning his abilities for his national side. But he was absolutely fantastic, wasn't he?
He was. To be honest with you, he's not been anywhere near his best this season, and I guess that's where the question marks have come from. He's been very consistent the last few years. There was probably going to be a dip coming it's not really been talked about in the press too much, but he's been carrying an injury since the Holland game in the Euros. So he's not been at his sharpest, and that's kind of why he's not been playing full matches. You saw at Stamford Bridge what he is about, the difference between Marlon, who's a bit of a kind of fox in the box who can run in behind, whereas Watkins is the guy who can occupy a back three or a back two, or, his work rate is just incredible. Got a bit lucky for the first goal, but he's kind of streaky like that anyway. When he gets on a run, he'll go 4 or 5 games plus scoring. It's just getting him that momentum and keeping him fit and healthy, I think, at the moment, knowing that there is a little bit of competition for places. But, is he number 2 for England? I think he probably was. Is there a big question mark? Yeah, deservedly on this season's form. But if he gets it right, between now and May, can he still go to the World Cup? Probably, because I don't think England are very well stocked. I'm not that, to be honest with you, not that bothered about the national team. But if we were to lose Kane in a World Cup, you would worry, because there's no natural, this is not the 90s anymore, is it, where every Premier League team has 2 top quality number 9s. It's kind of like, it's very slim pickings. It's the same at centre-back, I guess. The defensive cover for England is poor, and so is the striker. But I guess it's the same across Europe, really. Not many teams play with lots of strikers anymore. It's just the way the game's changed. Everybody
There's
plays
a big
with a lone
striker drought, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a theory on this. I think it's all Pep Guardiola's fault.
Yeah, let's blame him.
Yeah, I'm going to, Angelina. Sorry, but I'm going to. No, because, the way that they played for years and years and years, and the way that people adopted this pass and control system where they try and walk the ball in the net. The old, I don't know how old Chris is, but he's probably younger than me. But even you would remember the days when you just punted the ball up or put it out to the wings, put a cross in for a great big gnarly striker to head the ball in. And funnily enough, you no longer have strikers. They're all kind of, 9.5s or 10 and 10s or whatever. They're very, very... we say this all the time. And the one thing we need is a striker like Diego Costa, Didier Drogba, like we used to have. Where are they? They don't exist anymore.
We had John
So
Durant for 6
happened
months,
in between?
and we sold him.
Yeah.
It was great fun.
I thought he was a good striker. Yeah, totally right. I agree. But where are they now? You can count the fingers, the world-class strikers on the fingers of one hand, I think. There's very few. And who's coming through? They all want to be Phil Foden, don't they?
Yeah, this just seems like a whole Manchester City issue, to be honest, which, as a Manchester United fan, I'm all for.
So what you're saying is, what you're basically saying as a Man United fan is that Man City are the root of all evil in football. Is that what we're all agreeing on?
100%, and I'm not sorry about that.
They got 115 charges, but a striker ain't one.
Yeah. A striker is, well... Erling Haaland might be one striker.
Well, that's the great irony, isn't it, Angelina? They're now the only team in the league with a proper striker who does nothing apart from score goals, and he's massive. So even Guardiola's figured out that he was wrong. If you think about it, he was
the head of the curve. That's the issue. Yeah. Talking about Manchester City and how dominant they have been. Everyone's looking at this title race now, even though I agree that it's a mess, this league table. It needs to even itself out. But with Aston Villa, Chris, 11 successive winning all competitions, 3 points behind Premier League leaders Arsenal. Your manager might not admit it, but you are surely in this title race.
Yeah. Well, we are right now. At the time of speaking, we are right now because we're where we are because we deserve to be. Geez, you think about where we could have been if we didn't have such a terrible start. I'm hoping that's our bad run. We always have one in the season. I'm hoping we got it out of the way in August. Do I expect City to sort of kick for home? Probably. Not the scary thing for everyone else, because I don't think Villa are necessarily a scary prospect, but we're where we are without a goal scorer. Watkins hasn't been firing. I think Rodgers has got another level. We've still got Torres to come back. I think we've still got players who are still playing a little bit beneath their ceiling. I don't know what we're going to do in the January window. That's probably another conversation. But right now, we're looking very good value for being where we are. The bigger picture, probably similar to David's side, is we have to be in the Champions League next year, and if that's where the bar's set, we're in a very good position. Can we go the next step? Some of that may well be out of our hands because of what City, are capable of and what they can probably do in January. They'll just write blank cheques, won't they, until eventually one day someone finds them guilty of it, but I doubt they will. are we in the title race? Yeah, but do you know what? It's like, we're not a Leicester, we're a far bigger side than that. It's less of a shock, but why not? I think there's a lot of people who are non-Villa fans who are cheering us on this year because A, nobody wants to see Man City do it again. B, I don't think anybody could fathom the prospect of Arsenal Fan TV gloating about a league title. So if it's us that has to save football, do you know what? We'll be the superheroes.
And we'd love you for it, Chris.
And you'd be very welcome.
100%. And at the time of us recording, you got less than 48 hours to go before you face Arsenal.
Yeah.
Nerves kicking in or feeling
Nope.
confident?
No, it's opportunity. I think if you're Villa at this point and you're nervous, it's kind of like, why? I'm not naive enough to think Villa aren't going to lose games at some point, and but we're putting in bad performances and still winning. As I said, the XG hipsters are going to say it's unsustainable, but for the last 3 years we've been playing like this, and we're still in the mix. We made a bit of a mess of it last year. The big challenge, I think, is going to be when you get to the business end. You've seen the evidence over the last 3 years when Villa get to those real crunch games. There we had a Conference League semi-final, we had an FA Cup semi-final, we had to go to Old Trafford on the final day, which of course Chelsea were the benefactors of us completely dropping the ball there. Villa do have to get over the line now, be it top four or winning a trophy or whatever it may be. They have to take that next step now. Otherwise, I would worry that if you show yourself incapable of taking that step, we've got such amazing individual assets that you could find yourself in trouble in a year or two's time, because people are going to be looking at your players and your manager, and you have to kind of keep progressing to keep them.
And finally, David, a word for you on Chelsea. You've got Bournemouth, then you've got Man City. Fans are going to, get behind you as you go to battle against Pep, right?
Well, yeah, you'd hope so. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? If you don't get behind the team, then why are you even bothering to go there? But I fear that if we don't get a result against Bournemouth, then the frustration is going to be articulated. I mean, as I said, it's not. I mean, Maresca's not entirely to blame. I mean, there are definitely things that he's done that deserve our ire. But I think if Chelsea fans are going to be angry, they need to be angry with the sporting directors and the owners of the club, because they're the ones that have implemented this foolhardy strategy. So I hope they get it. But no, we all want to see Chelsea win. I hope we get a result against Bournemouth and surprise a few against City on Sunday.
Well, I think the rest of us here would be very happy with you getting a result against Man City. I am all for it. Well, there you have it, David and Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. This episode of Settle the Score is sponsored by Sky Sports. Stream Sky Sports flexibly on Now, what you want, when you want, no fuss. Go to nowtv.com to start streaming Sky Sports today.